It was a wonderful surprise. And then it was funny because Tuesday, they kept playing on the radio the story. Just changed the lives. And we got flowers on that. And we had to come back to the photo. And they always had like, and so for I didn't want to give her flowers. Come on. I saw, that's crazy. You didn't get any of that over here. That was your backyard? I know, we got nothing out there. Yeah, I mean, I covered a little bit.
You know, I was actually hearing it though, that big black cloud.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
I could hear.
Trying to put up a screen because we were but we had a clipper.
Good morning. What a small group today. Interesting. Sometimes it's nice, isn't it? A lot more intimate. So cool. All right. T-shirts. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself and spiders. I'm going to stop asking how dumb can you get. People seem to be taking on the challenge. I must be part squirrel. I attract all the nuts.
We are a little squirrely though.
You're about to exceed the limits of my medication. And Jesus loves you, but I'm his favorite. Oh, here's a nice little necklace. It says, I will hold you in my heart until I can hold you in heaven. I like that one too. We have 16, well not 16, but we got a lot of dozen fresh eggs out there. So if you want to make a bunch of chickens really, really happy.
Don't leave those there.
Oh, you're right. Don't leave it. Thank you for that. I did leave a dozen there one week. It's like, oops. But interesting enough, these eggs, since they are like about as fresh as you can get, and they have not been refrigerated, they were left here, and Sandra took them home. They're fine. So, yeah, how cool is that? We do have a couple patron saints by the name of George Carlin and John Lennon, and we are the only church in the universe that has a call to service with the Doobie Brothers. Only one. No one else would do that. And John said, life is what happens while you are busy making other plans. True. And George, equally as introspective, what year did Jesus think it was? I don't know.
I think it would have been in the Roman year.
Not sure. Things that make you go, Yeah, full calendar. Pretty good this month. Cool deal. We do Qigong every Sunday morning. And Marianne, thank you very much for that. This week, the emotion code is on Monday. Wednesday is interchange, Sandra and William. On Thursday is intuitive tarot, and also the ARE meets here on at the same time. So that's what's cool. We've got this, and we have two things going on at the very same time. How neat is that? And then Art and Soul on Saturday. Oh, Heidi's doing that. It's a craft project.
Yep.
That sounds like fun. Anybody know anything about that?
Yes. You bring something that you want to work on, even if it's just coloring.
Oh.
And it's just a space just to relax and enjoy
Oh, how fun.
Yeah.
How fun.
Kind of like adult playtime.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. All right, a man's mind is hidden in his writings. Criticism brings it to light.
Yeah. I don't know.
That was Solomon ben Uredi in 1022 BC. Hey Heidi, I just got through talking about you. So she's the one that does the Saturday thing. The mind of a bigot is like the pupil of the eye. The more light you pour upon it, the more it will contract. Oliver Holmes, 1841. Noisy blackbirds of the crow family living in large colonies were long prominent in rural England. They preyed upon other birds and made life miserable for farmers by stealing seed, digging up tender young plants and filling the air with their harsh shrieks. Trying to reproduce the bird's characteristic cry, early writers called it the hrock. Gradually modified, the name was applied both to the winged nuisance and to humans who behaved in a similar fashion. By the time of Shakespeare, any petty cheat was compared with thieving bird and said to rook those whom he defrauded. Oh, yeah. I like that stuff. Interesting. I always wonder, there's a ton of stuff I always kind of wonder, where did they come up with that saying, or how did they do that? Diseases spread by fleas have killed more people than all the wars ever fought combined. Yeah. Not to mention equally useful creatures like mosquitoes and flies. Why do we have those things? It was the coldest winter ever. Many animals died because of the cold. The porcupines, realizing the situation, decided to group together to keep warm. This way they were covered and protected themselves, but the quills of each one wounded their closest companion. After a while, they decided to distance themselves one from the other, and they began to die alone and frozen. So they had to make a choice, either accept the quills of their companions or disappear from the earth. Wisely, they decided to go back to being together. They learned to live with the little wounds caused by the close relationships of their companions in order to receive the heat that came from the others. This way they were able to survive. The best relationships is not the ones that bring together perfect people, but when each individual learns to live with the imperfection of the other and can admire the other person's good qualities. And of course the moral is, just learn to live with the thorns in your life. Put whatever word you want in there.
I see.
I think some of you did. I saw Christopher. He did already. Anything going on I should know about? You know, has anybody looked around the grounds recently? This guy is out of control. I mean, new picnic table in back, all stained. We got the bench up. Everything looks wonderful. We redid the bench up here. Redid the barbecue that had the burned thingy-majoggers and things. And I heard that he's going to be building a complete 40 by 60 pavilion out there so we can all have... Thank you, Roy. Oh, okay. One summer evening during a violent thunderstorm, kind of like the one last night in Kennewick. Except in wet, yeah. And yet here we are 2 miles down the street and nothing. Nothing. Heard it. One summer evening during a violent thunderstorm, a mother was tucking her son into bed. She was about to turn off the light when he asked with a tremor in his voice, "Mommy, will you sleep with me tonight?" The mother smiled, gave him a reassuring hug. "I can't, dear," she said. "I have to go to Daddy's room." Long silence was broken at last by the shaky little voice, "Big sissy." There you go. Good enough, right? Oh, yeah. You did say you wanted to say something. I remember. You always remember that you have to remind me, right?
Are we on?
Yes.
That's what I want to be on.
You're always on.
There's some pink slips in the back. I'm going to be doing a class again in June. It's $50. For returning students, it's only $25. Bring your paperwork. This process that I teach is one I use in hypnotherapy, but it really is a standalone system, and it can be used in any modality or by itself. It's very easy. I'm doing demonstrations next Tuesday at 6:30 here at the church. I'm doing demonstrations next Sunday afternoon, 1:30 to 3:30. The more you see this, the better it is, because it never sounds the same. It follows the same outline, but it never quite looks the same. So the more demonstrations you can see, the more it's going to be easier for you to do this. The reason for offering it is that we would like to make a list of people that are qualified in doing this here at the church. So if people call and have a problem, that they can be referred to someone on that list. So with that in mind, I've made up a certification program. I'm just kind of getting it together now. But if you want to stay after church and discuss it with me, I'm happy to do that today. Any questions?
Just
Okay.
a quick review what the award process is.
Sure. It's a simple way of getting back to the cause of a physical problem or an emotional problem and relieving that in just a few minutes. That sounds pretty incredible, but the people that have been here and gone through it, it is very possible. And it doesn't need hypnosis to do it. That's the beauty of this, is that we can all use it as a standalone process. Okay? So I hope you come Tuesday night or Sunday. Ask me questions after church today, because we really would like to get a nice list going here at the church of people qualified to do this. Thank you.
Thanks, Josie. Let's do an old Christian gospel music. Down to the river to pray. As I went YouTube, sorry, last week, for some reason, in fact, Jan's part of last week didn't even get recorded.
Mercury.
It's weird. I don't know. We got everything else, but not Jan's portion. So,
Well, she did say it was specifically for those who had come in.
I know. She really did. She really did. Yeah.
I'll be reviewing that material next Sunday.
Try again.
So, we are fortunate again to have one of our favorite people here today to talk to us. What? You can't hear me?
No, the screen.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And as always, he is in the most chipper mood, and we are always glad to see him now. Not that we weren't before, but considering all the trials and tribulations over the last few years, you're a miracle, son. So, get up here, let's hear you. Never know what I'm going to say, do you?
No, Bill, I never do. Well, I'm going to put on the gift that you have given me. Because it seems appropriate. Got some interesting things rolling through my head today to share with you. So the first thing that I want to say to you, first, of course, namaste.
Namaste.
We all know that we have several bodies. We have a physical body, we have a mental body, we have an astral body, a casual body. We've talked about those things and the things that are going on with those bodies as we develop and evolve into our destiny, if you will. What I want to emphasize this morning is that we have all those bodies and we know we have a soul. But the bodies don't have the soul. The soul has bodies. Okay, so I want to say that one more time because that's a very significant switch in how we view that. Okay? The bodies don't have a soul. The soul has the bodies. Okay? So that means the soul is the one that's in the pilot seat, not the bodies. And sometimes we allow the body to be in the driver's seat. That's like letting the kid in the car seat in the back take the wheel. No, thank you. Though I have seen that happen. How many have seen that happen? Yeah, a little crazy, huh? And they always survive. That's what kills me. Oh well, anyway. So having said that, I'm reading all the time. And I read things over and over and over again. Because every time I read something that really touches me or gives me some inspiration, I know that there are layers of truth there. Okay. And so as I peel the first layer off the onion and I take that in and I really sit with that for a while, I go back and take the next layer so I can go deeper. One of those things that I read over and over and over again is the book At the Feet of the Master. How many have read that? At the Feet of the Master. It was written by Christian Moody. What's interesting about it, he wrote it when he was 13 years old.
Wow.
And the whole book, and you can Google it, actually you can get a PDF file of it and read the whole thing. It's beautifully written, but what it is the dictation that the master gave him that he copied down. So it's called At the Feet of the Master. In the very beginning, this is how it starts. For those who knock. Okay? For those who knock. And then there are 3 lines, and these 3 lines go like this. From the unreal, lead me to the real. Okay? From the unreal, lead me to the real. The second line, from the darkness, lead me to the light. From the darkness, lead me to the light. And then the third line, which I love, from death, lead me to immortality. From death, lead me into mortality. These are words from the Master to Christian Muni when he was 13 years old. So those of you who have grandchildren, I love the notes, thank you. Those of you who have grandchildren and whatnot, be aware of the fact that if in this incarnation, if we don't put in front of them the truth and the light and at least expose them to that, they might go through this whole incarnation when they were ready to step onto the path and have to go through another whole lifetime because they weren't exposed to the truth. So that's why Christ said, suffer not the children to come unto me. There was deep wisdom in those words. We're all evolving, we're all moving, if you will. And it's a process that's ongoing. It doesn't ever stop. In the book On the Feet of the Master, there are 4 things that they describe that one must do to prepare oneself to step on the path, to get ready to go, to start doing the great work. And if you really go back and read the history and look at all of the things that were going on, Christ many times said, I do the work of my Father, who's doing the great work. The great work is the uplifting of mankind, the uplifting of us is really what it's about. So when you go back and look at all of those things, all of this intertwines with each other. It's all connected. We are truly one. So lead me from the unreal to the real. We tend to think we're separate beings, but we're really one, which is the real. The unreal is the separateness that we seem to think we are. Okay. It's subtle, but it's there. It's there. So the 4 things that are necessary to prepare oneself to step on the path and go through the first initiation, if you will, is first discrimination. And they break that down into a lot of different things. So if you read the book, you'll see, I can't go through all of it, but it's being able to discriminate between what is false and what is real. Okay, that type of discrimination. It's when stimulus comes in to be able to take a moment to look at it and assess it and decide what action you're going to take before you take it. It's the discrimination between being selfish and selflessness. It's also the discrimination between the real and the more real. Does that make sense? Okay. So if you have the choice to do a positive good deed, and you have several choices, which do you take? The one that's going to help one person or the one that's going to help several? So the ability to discriminate on the path becomes extremely important. And it's work. You're constantly doing this. It's something that you don't get to do it for an hour. It's okay, I'm done today. It doesn't work that way. You have to stay on it all the time. You never know when the Logos or one of the Masters needs you as a channel. And when I say that, you might be in a situation or around some people, and that higher entity, which we are still one with, needs you as a channel to get a message to a person that needs to hear something, or needs to make a step. And you're the only person that's close enough, that's enlightened enough, that's on the path enough to be able to be that channel. So you always have to be ready. You always have to be on point, if you will. It's important. The path is not easy to tread at this point. Later, down the road in our as we evolve and more people start to really get it, then it becomes easier, okay? Because you have that group mind and you can kind of crowd mentality, if you will. It's easier to get into enlightenment. Now it's a little harder, but now it's really important for every single person that can do that to do that, because that is the great work. So discrimination is the first thing. The second one is desirelessness. And doesn't mean you have to give up all your pleasures, that kind of thing. But to be prudent in what you do and how you do it. The third is do good works. And the fourth is simply to love. Those are the four things. Those four things, if you really want to walk the path, you really want to start making a change in your spiritual growth, those are the things you want to be aware of. Those are the things you want to work with. There are a lot of messages that we get. And how many remember the Kingston Trio? Oh, yeah. All right, good. There's a song that they do that I really love, and because we're in the desert, I want to share the words with you, but I want you to not just listen to the surface part of the meaning of these words. I want you to look below the surface, okay? The song is Desert Pete. How many remember Desert Pete? Okay. This is a song, so I was traveling west on a buckskin on my way to a cattle run across the cactus desert under a hot, blistering sun. I was thirsty down to my toenails, stopped to rest me on a stump. But I tell you, I just couldn't believe it when I saw that water pump. I took it as a mirage at first. It'll fool a thirsty man. Then I saw a note stuck in a baking powder can. This pump is old, the note began, but she'll work, so give her a try. I just put a new, slicker washer in her, and you might find the leather dry. In those old pumps, they had like leather washers in them. And the chorus, I'll read the chorus and then I skip the chorus for the rest of it. The chorus goes like, you gotta prime the pump, you must have faith and believe. You've got to give yourself, for you're worthy to receive. Drink all the water you can hold, wash your face, cool your feet. Leave the bottle full for others. Thank you, kindly, Desert Pete. Let me read that chorus one more time, because there's a message there. You've got to prime the pump. You must have faith and believe. You've got to give of yourself, for you're worthy to receive. Drink all the water you can hold. Wash your face, cool your feet. Leave the bottle full for others. Thank you kindly, Desert Pete. So when you go down in this, beyond the surface of those words, it's a very, very spiritual message. So then it goes on like this. Yeah, you have to prime the pump and work the handle like there's a fire. Under that rock, you'll find some water I left in a bitter jar. Now there's just enough to prime it, so don't you go drinking it first. You just pour it in the pump like, you just pour it in and pump like mad, buddy, you'll quench your thirst. So the message here is, I've given you just enough to get it started. Follow the direction and it'll work. So Spirit always gives us just enough so we can do what it is that we need to do. All we have to do is follow the directions. Discrimination, desirelessness, do good works, and love. Those are the directions. Okay. It goes on. Well, I found the jar, and I'm telling you nothing was ever prettier to my eyes. So how does it feel when you come across a book, or you listen to a lecture, or you hear something and it touches your spirit and you know you've been touched? You know something's going on, right? Okay. Same thing here. Well, I found a jar, and I'm telling you, nothing was prettier to my eyes. And I was tempted strong to drink it, because that pump looked mighty dry. Okay? So sometimes we get so excited when we find something, we want to go out and just tell everybody, but we haven't really taken the time to really understand what it was that we just received. And we stumble and we trip over what we're trying to say. And instead of really helping somebody, we might actually put a stumbling block in front of them. Right? Okay. But the note went on. Have faith, my friend. There's water down below. I like that. So the note went on. Have faith, my friend. There's water down below. You've got to give it until you get it. I'm the one who ought to know. So, he's saying, have faith. It's there. Have faith. And he says, you have to give it until you get. You have to give. You have to keep going. You have to keep working until it comes through. And he says, after that, he says, I'm the one who ought to know. Wonder who's saying that. I love music. Music is one of those things that taps into the creative force, if you will, and many out of the big reservoir that the Logos is constantly putting in energy into. And when I do Mass, that's what I tap into. An angel presence comes down, and we pull energy from that reservoir, if you will, of love and spiritual stuff. And that's what's going on here. It just tickles me too. All inside of it bubbly. Okay. So pour in the jar and start pumping. So I poured in the jar and I started pumping, and I heard a beautiful sound of water bubbling and splashing up out of the hole in the ground. So he had the faith. He poured the water in instead of drinking it. Started pumping like crazy because that was what the directions said. And as he was doing that, he started to hear that beautiful sound of water bubbling up from the ground. So he knew it was there. And you know yourselves, once you really get that spark, that divine spark, and it drives you on, and you've got to share it with people, and you have to do whatever it is that your calling is. And you start touching other people's lives, and you see that glow in their eyes, and you know you're on the right track. That's like that water bubbling up out of the ground. You know you're getting it. You know you're doing what you should be doing. And it feels really good. It feels really good. I took off my shoes, and I drank my fill of that cool, refreshing treat. I thanked the Lord, and I thanked the pump, and I thanked old Desert Pete. So there's the reward. And the reward is when we do walk the paths and follow those directions and do all of those things. That there's this great, wonderful, beautiful reward that's in store for all of us. And even if we feel as if, it's all bookie, hogwash, I don't care, well, I got news for you. At the very end of our cycle, we're the fifth root race. At the very end, regardless of what you've been doing or where you've gone, if you're the last person to get on the bus, you're going to make it, despite yourself. You will make it. But what a joy it is to get on the bus at first and help other people on. What a joy that is. So let me once again read the chorus. You got to prime the pump. You must have faith and believe. You got to give of yourself, for you're worthy to receive. Drink all the water you can hold. Wash your face, cool your feet. Leave the bottle full for others. Thank you kindly, Desert Pete. So that's just one example of how we're being led, if you will, how we're being taught. There are all kinds of messages that we get every single day. I know many of you in here, when you're kind of like, oh, what do I do? You'll go to the Bible and just open it up and go, how many to do that? Yeah. Or maybe it's not the Bible, it's a really good book that really, does it for you. And you just open it up to the page and bam, there it is. How's that happen? Well, it's all connected. There are no mistakes. There's no mistakes in what we're doing. We're all moving forward through this thing. It's just wonderfully beautiful. I'm reading a lot this day. So I want to share with you something I've shared before, because this really talks, I believe, about what we're doing here. I've read this poem before, but like I said, I go back and reread things, because every time I go back and reread something, it gets deeper for me. So let me share this with you again. This is called The Gates of Heaven Open Inward. Millions and millions of years ago, when the world was young and new, an infant man was crawling around to see what he could do. The earth was full of tempting charms to test his skill in brawn, so he could learn the laws of life and win himself a crown. His strength and skill improved with use. His pride and ego grew. He hardly tread the lowly earth, all things he thought he knew. He sailed the mighty ocean from shore to distant shore, and climbed the highest mountains in search of gold and ore. He stopped to rest one summer day in a peaceful mountain glen, and far above the clouds he spied the hidden throne of heaven. Surprised indeed at such a sight, what distant place was this? It seemed to change him to the spot, the scene of perfect bliss. The more aloft he held his gaze, desire the stronger grew, to strive to gain this high domain and bid the world adieu. He called aloud to those above to show the trail their way, so he could come and see their home and live with them someday. Enraged to hear such bizarre talk, the threat to be their peer, they sought the aid of God above to stop the man with fear. God went to see this lowly man, to hear his plea for heaven, and counseled him for such a trip as father would his children. God granted man his heart's desire, approved man's right to come, if he the proper life would live and find the key to home. And God told his heavenly aides that man might come someday if he the hidden key could find and try the narrow way. The key, God said, is hid secure, where none would think to look. Inside man's soul, the key was hid, not in some secret nook. The gates of heaven open inward. Each one must search within to learn the truth that leads to peace, and thus is heaven win. So when I started this morning, the first thing I really said to you after Namaste was, you are a soul with bodies. You are not bodies with a soul. And this is the reason why I said that, because you truly are in control. You truly are the master of your bodies, of your physical body, your casual body, your astral body, your mental body. The astral body is where a lot of our emotions are, a lot of our feelings are. And the astral plane has a lower astral plane and there's a higher astral plane. And the higher astral plane are the feelings of goodwill and those type of feelings, higher vibrations. And those are the vibrations you want to focus on. That's what your soul wants to do. The mental body is the same way. That's where all of our thinking process is taking place. And both in the astral body and in the mental body, they like a lot of activity. So things are constantly going on. Feelings are changing, boom, 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 boom. You're thinking about this, you're thinking about that. So when I say stop discrimination, first thing on the path, stop. Who's doing the thinking? Is it your mental body, which it will do that, or is it your soul? Stop. Think about what you're thinking. Who's doing it? Who has the feelings? What is real? What is unreal? Remember the first three things? From the unreal, lead me to the real. From the darkness, lead me to the light. And from death, lead me to immortality. We are immortality. We are immortal beings. We do not die. The soul does not die. These bodies are going to do their thing. It's okay. It's like a horse. We're riding that. The horse, it's not the other way around. We're the ones that are in control. Is it work? Yes. Do you have to be diligent? Yes. What did Christ say to the disciples when he said to go out and preach? He said, be like lambs amongst wolves. Okay? It's a lot of work. We're here on this plane to grow and to help others grow. To do that, it does take work. It takes diligence. It takes being discriminate about what you're thinking and what you're doing and what is real and what is not real. And it takes desirelessness, and it takes doing good works, and it takes love. And probably the person that gives you the biggest headache in the world is probably one of your greatest teachers. Bless them. Okay? And learn the lesson. And whatever anybody thinks has no matter on what you are and what you're trying to do in this particular lifetime. They have their own karma to deal with. And yes, there is karma. Sorry. It is a universal law. It's a governing law. You cannot get around it. We do have to clean up our karma. And sometimes some of the things we go through are the things that help us do that. And we might go through something and feel like, oh my God, why I haven't put up with this? But we probably did something in who knows which lifetime, and we're burning it off. There's some of the things I'm going through physically with cancer and some other things, I'm going, yeah, burn that karma. Oh yeah, get it out. Sometimes people go, how do you deal with this? It's a blessing. It truly is. Sure, is it easy? No. I won't stand here and say this is a fun thing to go through. It's not. I struggle with it sometimes, but I understand what's going on with it. It's therefore I can struggle with it joyfully. Big difference. Big difference between a body that has souls or a soul that has bodies. Okay? So that's my message. For those who knock. Okay. And the book is At the Feet of the Master. You can Google that. It's a PDF file. You don't have to buy the book. And it's there. Namaste. Namaste. And for those of you who haven't seen this, and you're welcome to come and take a look at it.
Is he warm in here? Is it warm in here? You're comfortable?
It's warm, yeah.
I did a heel. Communion is a
You're not
physical-
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I like to say that. Communion is a physical manifestation of the divine connection that we already have. So whether you like the unleavened bread for the tradition of that, rice cakes if you're wheat intolerant or have wheat issues, gluten issues, there's animal crackers if you'd like to honor a Native American pathway. Whatever works for you works for us. So would you join us in prayer, please? Loving Spirit of light, we ask that you walk with us in all things. And as we partake of this, help us to honor this physical form and acknowledge the Spirit within this physical form. We ask that you bless us on our journey. These things we pray in the name of Jesus. Amen. Sorry, I have an attack of verb here.
I didn't give it to you.
Would you join us in prayer again, please? Loving Spirit of light, as we drink this in, help us to drink in life, all of it, and know that our path is sacred and our journey is blessed. These things we pray in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen.
Did you ever think you would hear a priest say what this gentleman says? Well, I know you know a few. You know somebody that I don't remember doing this in forever? Janice. You know this?
Oh, sure, why not? I don't need that. Don't need no stinking. Oh my! Gosh, without you being here in the church, I just wouldn't have any fun at all. I am so blessed to know you and participate in this with you. This is our haven, and it takes a little finances to get it going, keep it going, and get stuff done. So whatever you can donate is much appreciated. And as you give, your gift is blessed. We have people that count money and that sort of thing. And what's really funny is they'll bless it too. So when it goes to the bank, they're taking a blessing to the bank, and then it's spread out through the rest of the community. How fun is that? So whatever you can do, appreciate it. If a blessing is all you can manage, a blessing is just wonderful. So thank you for all that you do. Rock it. Are you? 4? Oh, sure. Want to do that too?
Gratitude. Yeah, I'm going to do this one too. Back in the foyer where you come in, there are papers that you can actually write a gratitude. You know, gratitudes are very powerful. Thinking them, saying them out loud, and writing them are making them even tenfold more powerful than just thinking of it alone. So we have a couple of them today. So grateful to be part of this beautiful family. Nowhere else am I so safe, welcome, and included.
Amen to that one.
And the other one is for the weather. I love the weather. I don't know about you guys, but
Just throw it up.
a little bit of Phil in me this morning.
We're in trouble.
As you know, with the communion that we share every Sunday, as part of a gift to the church and being of service to the church, we ask for volunteers to put that communion together and then clean it up after the services. So we need to pass the calendar around for June. It is coming up pretty quick. We have the 5th already filled, so the 12th, 19th, and 26th. If those 3 fill up and you would like to be a part of it, then go on into the next month and go ahead and sign up for one of those Sundays. So I'll start that.
And you'll be called with a reminder.
Yes, Lori calls people the day before to help remind you that you have it that day. Thank you.
So should we do a guided meditation?
Yes.
Had something come through a couple of days ago. I thought, well, that should be really interesting. And then this morning on the way to church, what it's going to mean for us today came through. Are we done with the stuff? Okay. Yes, Jim? Did you need something?